What's the weirdest thing you've done to get laid? Drove an hour each day to take my dog to a dog park because there were lots of gorgeous ladies there. I respect the hustle. Dog parks are hands down the best place to meet singles. Especially if you have an extremely good boy/girl as your wingman. Better than bars, in my opinion. Folks are often there alone and just waiting while their dog plays or totally open to small talk from a stranger. Often single. People are often not on their phones because they're watching their dogs. What other venue can you find this? Really easy to disengage and focus on your dog if the vibe isn't right. Approaching an attractive woman for small talk isn't automatically assumed to be hitting on. Automatic shared interest and conversation topic. Who isn't in a good mood while you're at the dog park? Conversations can last at least 15 to 30 minutes, no problem. People who have dogs and care about them enough to take them to the park are a self-selecting demographic and tend to have their shit together more than the average sampling in a bar or club. You're sober and they're well lit, although, if you're not great looking, I suppose the converse of that can be a hindrance. In my opinion, women look better in hoodie and sweatpants than cocktail dress and heels, but I'm just cozy like that. Your dog is an excellent wingman with no approach anxiety, and can be a great second opinion on their vibes. Accidentally asked a girl on a date that lived 1,000 miles away. I'd matched her on a dating app while on business, but didn't notice where she was from. We kept talking anyways, and I ended up securing the date. She flew out to see me. We dated long distance for a long while, and then I moved to be closer. We're married now. Congrats. Not many can make the long distance thing work. In a similar vein, I was talking to this girl, and I was super into her. We were texting, and I fell asleep and sleep texted her, "So, when am I picking you up tomorrow for dinner?" She said yes, and I was so confused as to when I sent that, cause I had no memory of it. Awake me would never have that confidence. Chatted a lady online long enough, she finally agrees to go out. Tells me ahead to pick her up, as she trusts her dog to be a judge of men, and wants her dog to meet me. No worries. Before I show up, I smear some raw hamburger on my shoes. The dog loved me. Easy peasy. I read books about Van Gogh, Gauguin, Cézanne and a few others to impress a girl. Did not get laid, but 25 years later, had a blast at the Musée d'Orsay. Totally vindicated. Accidentally getting cultured has to be one of the best outcomes of trying stupid shit to get laid. Yep. I'm into architecture, female lead bands, guitar and piano, speaking other languages, travel, environmentalism, fitness, and outdoor activities for this reason. Ha ha ha. I pretended to be afraid of flying once on a plane, because the woman next to me was hot. Got her number, and hooked up with her, later. Edit. Since people seem surprised this worked, I'm 2 on starting conversations with people on planes this way. The second I didn't ask for her number, though. Watched someone's rabbit for the weekend. Not only did I not get laid, they never came back for the rabbit. R.I.P. Floppy. Wait, is Floppy the rabbit? Or you're? Literally in 2017, I would wear an unpadded bra and put wireless earphones in it to look like hard nipples. Hard nipples will never not be sexy. I will never not agree with. Get married. I was young and raised in religion, and there was a girl I was head over heels with, and we got married 6 months after meeting. It was odd and weird, to say the least, but more like ignorant and stupid. The marriage lasted less than a year, and I knew her less than 20 months total. I met my wife at 17 in college. I moved in with her and her mother after 2 weeks. I was essentially kidnapped. I'm 52 now with 2 kids. I'm still trying to escape. Hot girl said, solving a Rubik's Cube is so attractive, so I took a whole weekend to learn how to do it. Couldn't wait to show her. When I did at school on Monday, she said, "Oh, that's cool. Didn't get any play, but now I can solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds, lol." She meant, solving a Rubik's Cube is sexy when a sexy person does it. Definitely not the weirdest thing, but I used to have a pretty dumb, and kinda slutty, friend. Every time she would come over, I would run upstairs to my room, and pretend I was napping. She would always let herself in, and come up to my room and hop in bed, to wake me up. I got laid, most of the time. I feel like If I was sitting downstairs with my roommates, when she came over, it probably wouldn't have happened as often. When I turned 18 in high school, this girl that never showed the slightest interest in me, began to constantly ask to hang out. Every time we did, she asked me to buy her cigarettes. I did so, knowing pretty well, that she was just using me to get her nicotine fix. We fooled around for several months, and then, you guessed it, she stopped showing any interest, after her birthday passed. I wasn't upset, I knew the deal. I was just a glorified, tobacco whore. Getting into a cake baking contest. Are we gonna get a story for that? Back in high school, there was this girl I was into. She was taking cooking/baking classes, and my dumb ass decided to join, just to spend some time with her. 2 weeks into it, there was going to be a contest between all participants, and I was nowhere near ready, but said yes anyway, because F it. I didn't come first, but I got the prize I wanted. Stupid college days. We would take my dog for a walk. Would hook his collar to a fishing pole, let him run around, and when girls would ooh and ah, we would slowly reel him back in, and they would come talk with us. Early 2000s college was weird. Literally, fishing for girls, with a dog as bait. My friend with benefits was on date. That was super weird. She messaged asking me to come grab her, as her brother, while pretending to be angry. She was an hour away, so I left, and kept calling her, to make it seem real. Went there, and made a scene and took her away. We then drove to a parking lot, and she wanted to return favor, with amazing sex. I did a similar thing a while ago. But it was just 3 young ladies, that were out and about. I told them to just say, that I was their uncle, if anybody was harassing them, and they can just come back to the table with me. Another woman, closer to my age, thought that it was sweet, that I was taking care of my nieces, while they were out and about. We started talking, and the 3 young ladies were the ultimate wing girls for me. They talked me up so much, that the woman ended up going back to my place that night. Unfortunately, I started seriously dating my now ex, a few weeks later, and she asked me to remove those young ladies from my social media. I should have kept the wing girls as friends, they were loads of fun. I walked from Arlington to Dallas, to lose my virginity, when I was 15. I reached her house, after 16 hours of walking. I didn't have money for a taxi, but had the money to buy condoms and a gym membership, so I could wash my ass, before heading to her house. I got there at like 4 a.m. Got to her house, at 4:30 a.m. It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her, a 15-year-old girl, and we had sex in her room. I was tired, from walking for 16 hours just to get laid. She was tired, from worrying about me all day. So, we slept till noon the next day. When we woke up, her mom said, "Go get him," 'cause she looked in the room, to see 2 high schoolers cuddling in bed. She didn't give us a speech. I overheard her talking to my mom over the phone saying, "If this boy walked 16 hours, to F my daughter, there's nothing either of us could have done," and we both just laughed so hard. We spent the day together, then her mom drove me home. She gave me a speech on the way home. My mom beat my ass, for the first time in years, when I got home. My God, the difference between black and white parenting is wild. LMFAO. Tried to not get laid. It was only our second date, and I was like, I'm going to behave tonight. Drove her crazy, apparently. I ended up getting laid that night. Our 7th wedding anniversary is in a few months. This has worked for me. Once, also in college. Was like, I like you so much, don't want to move too quick. Boom. Jesus Christ. I've been so oblivious to women who are attracted to me, and this has never happened. Part of my personality is that I don't think about sex. Well, at least not during a conversation. I'm pretty dense that way. It's only years later, I might bump into these women, and they would confess that we would have totally effed if I made the first move. I've also gotten, maybe, he's gay. Shake my head. Followed an entire season of American Idol, and sat through movies, like Garden State, and The Notebook, over and over again. You could have asked me anything about that season of American Idol, and I could have answered it. She had to miss a couple episodes, because she had to work, so I recorded them, and gave her a rundown, when she would call me, on her drive home, from work. She'd come over to my place after work, and we'd watch the episode I just fully described to her. It's the only season of that show I've seen, and I had never watched a single episode, before I met her, or after we split up. Had to send her kids to school every Thursday, so I can have booty weekends, Saturday and Sunday. We were not committed to each other. I was 21. She was 30. It was strictly trading. Lasted for 7 months, then she got married again. Edit, she was, and still is, my neighbor. Flew across the country, from a warm sunny place, to a frozen tundra, in the dead of winter. I once drove from Southern California to Detroit, almost non-stop, to have sex with a woman I used to work with. We had sex for about 4 hours. I got back in my car, and drove almost non-stop, back to California. Though, I never saw her again. It was, well, worth it. I pretended like I didn't notice, when her teenage kid stole my weed. After you laid the pipe, you should have said, "You still stole my pot, but I effed your mom." Flew to China. Met a girl, she was heading to China, to teach English, about a month later. We had a good month before she left. She invited me to meet up in China, to see Tiger Leaping Gorge. I went. Had the sexes. Climbed a mountain, but the road was blocked, so, we wouldn't have a way back. So, we never saw the gorge. Met up a few months later, in Phuket. Yada yada, we're married with 2 kids. I once posted a pic on my Instagram of this girl that I had Tinder DMs with, and this other girl slid in my DMs, and was like, "Oh, she's lucky." I later linked with the girl, and we banged. I basically got laid, because I posted a picture of a girl, and another girl wanted to F me, afterwards, LOL. Easiest, most unorthodox way I ever got laid. For my 21 birthday, my dad took, virgin me, to a brothel, and bought me a lady. Parenting mistake 469, first he asked, if I was gay. When I said, no, he said, "Come on, I have a gift for you." He meant well, I guess, but not the way to lose your virginity. I went home from work early last week, because I was horny, which is the first time in my life I've ever had to do that, so it was pretty weird for me. Masturbated on the way home in my car, over my pants, and I was incredibly conscious of the cars around me, then effed my boyfriend's brains out when he got home. Learned to play I'm Yours by Jason Mraz on the ukulele for my friend's Hawaiian-themed wedding, and played it while the bride walked down the aisle. Mission was a success, ended up hooking up with the maid of honor's sister. I once pretended to be a history buff to impress a guy in my class who I thought was super smart. Turns out, he was just a walking Wikipedia, and didn't even know I was faking it. LOL. A guy I knew would go to parties and claim to be a student from this other university in a very select music program. Instant clout, and got laid a lot. Until he hit on a girl from that music program who let him know loudly he was not from there. LOL. Jumped into a pool with my clothes on, reasoning the girl I was flirting with would invite me back to her apartment so I could change my clothes. It worked. The sex wasn't worth it, though. The sex wasn't worth it? In what way? She wasn't good in bed? You got her pregnant, and are stuck with her? Her husband walked in halfway through? More details would be appreciated by my nosy self. The sex wasn't good. She was pretty passive, and she didn't like when I complimented her body. I guess she wanted me to sex her personality, I don't know. Lied to my friend that I needed a history essay on the slave trade, even though I worked in steel making, told him it was a manager's course. He wrote me the essay, I claimed it as my own, and give it to a girl I was chatting to, who needed help. I got laid, the girl passed her essay/assignment, and I kept it secret for something like 15 years, till I told him during my best man speech, at his wedding. You did not, at the wedding too? What was everyone's reaction? He laughed it off. It got quite a funny reaction from all the guests, especially our mutual friends, haha. I can tell you the weirdest way I got laid. This was the military dorm in England, late 90s. I'm just playing StarCraft, minding my own business, when there's a knock on my door. I open it, and there's the girlfriend of a guy who lives downstairs. She say, I really want to get laid, but my friend is here with me. Can she stay with you tonight? Naturally I said, yeah. She turns, and goes to the end of the hall, and waves her friend around the corner. I've met her in passing once in the dorms, but never spoke to her. She does a fast intro, and pushes her into my room. We're both standing there kind of awkwardly, as her friend leaves to go get laid. She turns back and says, "Oh, she really likes her bum smacked, too." We look at each other and laugh, then close the door. It gets crazier, because I become the de facto friend drop-off zone for the dorm. A sort of on-call wingman for my boys. I didn't have to do shit, and over the span of a year, they brought me 3 more women. I didn't get laid, but when I moved from middle school to high school, a girl I had a massive crush on told me she was going to sign up for the culinary class. I had no interest in cooking, but I signed up for it, so I could have a class with her. She moved away about 3 weeks into the school year, and it was too late for me to switch out, so I ended up getting stuck in culinary. I loved it, and did it all 4 years of high school. I was polite to my friend's sister the first time we met. Later that night, she popped her bra off and put my hands under her shirt. Then, the 4th or 5th time we met up, she dragged me upstairs to her bed. Never flirted or anything. The first night, I was just well-mannered. That itself wasn't weird, but I'm still confused as to how that led to getting laid. Was I the first person nice to her? I'm lost to this day. I'm in a wheelchair, and I butt-scooted up a small flight of stairs into a non-accessible apartment while dragging my chair behind me. Being drunk, I didn't think much of it at the time, but let me tell you, the scoot of shame down the stairs the next day hits different. But a trash can. My college girlfriend, now wife, told me she refused to officially date anyone unless they had a trash can in their bathroom. Looking back now, it is a wonder how I didn't have one in there in the first place, but you bet your ass I drove to get a trash can as fast as I could. I guess I didn't just do it to get laid, but it was what kicked off our relationship. The daughter of the mayor of our city was insanely good looking. She and I were good friends in high school, but I always felt she was way out of my league, so I never even attempted to even ask her out. She disappeared after high school, and resurfaced about 5 years later, when we crossed paths in a local supermarket parking lot, where we talked for hours, standing outside our cars. She acted very interested in my conversation, and she asked me if I would like to come to her house for dinner later that week. I eagerly agreed. The sexual tension I felt was pretty high. I really thought I was going to finally get lucky with this attractive woman at long last. The day arrived, and I went over to her house for dinner. She fixed a really nice meal. Afterwards, we went into her living room, where she had a dry erase board on a stand in the living room, facing where we were sitting. After a minute or two, she stood up and started her Amway sales pitch. She lured me to her house to try to convince me to join Amway. I thanked her for dinner and told her that I wasn't interested. I left confused and with blue balls. Not laid, but got head from this girl, who was a really bad artist. I pretended to like her stuff and was very complimentary. Bought a little piece for $10, and she was thrilled. Turned the convo into "and it's been a while" thing, and next thing you know, she's rectifying that for me. One time, I was at an anime convention, checking out the artist's alley. I noticed a really cute artist sitting by herself, and thought to myself, hey, maybe I can go over there, compliment her artwork, start a conversation. So, I looked at her book, and her art was terrible. Absolutely awful, easily the worst I'd ever seen at a convention. The compliment I had planned died in my throat, and I just awkwardly turned a few pages in silence before moving on. Girl I like was sad about her friend, who was also single. The friend couldn't get a date to save her life. She wasn't ugly or anything, just had no personality and was kinda gloomy. I told the girl I wanted to bang that I'd take the friend out and show her a good time if the girl I wanted agreed to let me do the same after. She agreed to it. The friend was actually really fun. We went ziplining to a fair thing and capped the day off at the dog park with my pup, who didn't hate her, which was shocking. She got to pet so many dogs. She was thrilled. We never had sex, but I would have had she given me any signal. She was that fun. I went out with the girl I wanted to go out with a few days later. Made a plan for a few fun activities. When I went to her house to pick her up, she pulled me in, and we had sex right away. Didn't do any of the other stuff. I regret not effing the friend. Or hell, dating her. The girl I wanted was not as fun in bed as I'd imagined she'd be. Freshman year. Hung out with a girl in her dorm, watching Will and Grace nightly, for a few weeks. She was a tough one to read. Daughter of a preacher. I ended up joining a fraternity, and got busy with all of that shit. We never even kissed. Plot twist, a year into college, found out she ended up becoming a pretty wild child. My friend at school was from a super Christian family. Swore she would absolutely not have sex outside of marriage. 3 months at university, comes back home for the holidays, and she has had 3 guys. In a public jacuzzi, I listened to 2 hours straight of complaints by a middle-aged lady with a great body. She complained about being ghosted by some kind of clothes traveling salesman, who is also a teacher of some kind of bullshit Indian Brahma theories and guru stuff. I proposed a comparison with Vietnamese massages, total improvisation, on the spot. It worked. Waited in a car for over 12 hours for her dad to leave. It was very cold, and my heater didn't work good in my beater from college. Her dad was in the mafia, so I had to be extra sneaky, but glad this was primarily before camera phones and doorbell cameras. This was winter break in college, and I stayed for athletics, and she was an hour away at home. He left. I got in, banged her into another dimension, had breakfast with her and her mom, who was my co-conspirator, and then left and went back to the dorms. We ended up going our separate ways, but if he knew a non-Italian was raw-dogging his only baby girl, I would probably be dead. She gave the best head, though. I didn't know I was doing this, but I was chatting with a woman from another town that was going to pass through mine. She wanted a hookup. I'm a joker, and at some point I said she'd have to pay me to lay me. She asked how much. I said, a Happy Meal. We didn't have a McDonald's where I was at the time, and was craving it. It just popped into my head as a joke. We agreed on our terms. We met up, hooked up, and then I drove her back to her vehicle. She asked me to wait, and she went to her car and came back with a cooler, and in it was a Happy Meal. I laughed so much. I got home and warmed it up and enjoyed it. She might have been sarcastic and using dry humor, but I got the feeling we'd made an actual trade. We chatted on and off for a few years after that, and I never asked. She still pops on my Instagram, but I don't engage.